Hey everyone, we're getting started in 4 minutes. If you need the interpreter, I have posted the Zoom link in ASL group and on my personal page if you need it. It's also in your email. So just give us a minute to get all the technology set up, and then we will get started at 6:30 on the dot. And if you're here, say hi so we know you're here. Thanks. And then you just post it and it'll go. Has anyone else joined?
It says Andrea and Clay. Last name is
Sweet.
Hope and Carolyn.
Awesome. I don't want to navigate a way to post under it live. All right, so while we're waiting to start, I want to let you know that after this is over, in the comments, I am going to post the link to the PowerPoint. And then we will also be uploading this to YouTube. So if you watch it and you miss something or you don't remember, you're going to be able to watch it again, and you can print the PowerPoint and take notes on it, because there's going to be a lot of information shared. And I'm also going to be sending it out in my email tomorrow, so if you are on the list, you will also get a link to the replay and the PowerPoint. And if you're not yet, you should go over to my website, roadtolivinghwhole.com, and there's a green bar right there on the top. You just put your name and your email, and then tomorrow you will get that along with some other freebies, because that's how it works. All right, you ready? All right, so it is time to get started. We are very excited to talk about intermittent fasting. This is something that is really popular right now. A lot of people do it wrong. A lot of people are scared to get started because they don't know what to do. And so we are diving in for the next hour. And if you are watching this, please say hello, ask your questions. We will answer them as quickly as we can. We appreciate your feedback. Mm-hmm. And so let's get started.
And if you have other topics you want us to address, please feel free to ask us. So people have been asking us for this one, which is one of the reasons that we decided to delve into this one. Because there's a lot of misinformation. Imagine that.
All right. So you want to get started?
Sure. So I'm Dr. Greyer. I'm an integrative physician. I've been practicing for 13 years, and I do mostly chronic complex disease, family medicine, and pediatrics, because I love them. I love my families. But a lot of what we do together is chronic complex disease, and so we'll try and tie in some intermittent fasting with how we use that for our patients.
Yeah, and I am Mary Mitchell. I am a certified integrative nutrition health coach, and I also, we as a practice specialize in complex chronic disease, and what I do is I help make the transition to healing a lot easier with meal plans and coaching support and all of that, just to do all the hard work for you so that you can focus on trying to get healthy and living your life versus trying to figure out what the heck to eat.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Right.
so
So this is, we're on opposite, so I'm actually on the left and the right, and so it's a little weird. So bear with us as we try to help make sure you can read.
We'll play a little bobblehead with you, but you should be able to see it all. I'm not going to read this to you. Most people know what intermittent fasting is, and it's where you stop eating or you restrict your calories for specific amounts of time. And so the definition from Wikipedia is, it's an umbrella term, various. We're going to go through all of the different ways, or the most popular ways that people intermittent fast. And then we'll talk about each of those kind of separately. We'll talk about what is good, what we've seen is not working, how people are putting their own little twists on it, how it can be dangerous, and so we'll delve through all of that for you. Yep.
All right, I'm going to move this so I can reach it.
All right. Okay, so I hear a lot, mostly from other practitioners, but I do hear this from patients, where they'll say, oh, this is a new thing. It's called intermittent fasting. This is not a new thing. So a lot of my patients may know, or you may know, that we've used intermittent fasting for a very long time. Oftentimes it's been for religious celebrations, observations as part of holidays, where there's been fasting from a certain time to a certain time for a certain period, sometimes the same time each year. And also from an evolutionary standpoint, we had periods of fasting. So this is something that our bodies actually know. It's not just a new fad, although there have been a lot of spins on it, mostly by fitness instructors and coaches, and then some journalists. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, but I won't delve into all of the influential people who have necessarily brought it forward. But it was highly popularized in 2012. There was a BBC broadcast, which more people are familiar with. And you can see here that there was a documentary, Eat Fast, Live Longer, and a book, Fast Diet. And then from there, this journalist, Kate Harrison, made a book, a 5-2 diet. We're going to talk about the 5-2 diet. It's based off of her own individual experience. So this is super important because a lot of people are using the 5-2 diet, and that's a whole other topic. So like I said, we're going to go into each of the different popular types of intermittent fasting, that being one of them. And then Dr. Jason Fung, 2016, if you haven't read the Obesity Code, it's actually one of the best on intermittent fasting and about weight loss and how it influences. So I'd highly recommend that. And then there's lots of other ones as well.
And we do have a bunch of links at the very end of the PowerPoint that you'll be, if you want to learn more and see what the more about what the science is, because we're touching on it right now, you'll be able to access that when we send out the PowerPoint later.
I have to stop myself because I really love to get into the intricacies of the science, and so I had to pull myself back on this, where I was like, let's talk about insulin, and let's talk about human growth hormone, and let's talk about all these things. But we really wanted you to be able to take away what are these different protocols for intermittent fasting, what's safe, am I a candidate, what do I really need to know about it. So those references are in the end for you.
Yeah. So what we see happening when people start intermittent fasting, and we see this all the time. The biggest and most popular thing is people overdo it. They take something good and go overboard. The other thing people do is they break their fast incorrectly and set themselves up for a blood sugar roller coaster, which is the whole reason why you're supposed to be doing this, is to prevent that. They're not prepping their body for fasting at all. And then they're using it as a diet tool versus a health tool. So keep that in mind as we're diving through, as we're going through each of the different methods out there, is that there's a whole lot more to it than just restricting your calories or restricting the time that you eat.
Mm-hmm. So these are the popular methods, and we'll go through the most popular ones. Okay, the one I see the most of is the 16-8 method. So you can see here, we put a calendar up for each of them so you can get a little bit of a concept, and then we'll go through each of them separately. But after dinner, right down here, people eat their last meal, and then they fast until the next day, usually at noon. So they're fasting for that 16-hour period, and this is 7 days a week. So some people say, okay, I just they count it as skipping breakfast, and they break their fast at lunch, and then they eat between this, 12 and 6 period. Now, this varies a little bit. Some of the research shows women do really well breaking their fast a little bit differently than women or than men, and so some people will do it at 10 instead of 12, and there are variations of that as well. So, fasting every day, 14 to 16 hours is the most common, so we call it the 16 to 8, but 14 to 16. Women actually can't fast. We don't do as well fasting as long, so I don't recommend a full 16 hours for women. For men, they do much better, but for women, going into that anywhere from 12 to the 14, 15 hour mark, they do better, which we're going to talk about 12-12 later as well. Okay? So within that eating window, when they do eat during that 6 hours or so, you can fit in 2, 3, or more meals. Now, this is really important because this is how we see people do it incorrectly, is that they fast and then they cram their face, or they eat like 4 meals, 3 meals in that 6 hours, and that's a terrible idea depending on what you're eating, how you're eating it. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. Like I said, women tend to do better with slightly shorter fasts. I usually recommend between 12 and 15, depending on how, what their health is. I individualize it quite a bit. We do.
Yeah.
During this time, you can drink water, you can drink coffee, you can
without
drink tea.
sweetener, no Starbucks.
There are also a lot of websites out there that talk about 0-calorie beverages, so I put that in parentheses here because I really wanted to touch on that. This is super important when we get into what we're trying to accomplish here with intermittent fasting. So I'm gonna bring that up again later. What are we talking about when we're talking about a 0-calorie beverage? Okay. Yeah. And then it's not a free ticket to eat whatever you want to break your fast. So again, not just during that time. A lot of people will fast when they're doing it incorrectly. This is what I've seen, is that a lot of people will fast and they'll just cram food in. They're just so hungry, they're like breaking their fast, and then they eat terrible food, poor quality food, lots of calories, and they're essentially binging, which is undoing all of the beautiful, work that they're trying to accomplish, which again, we're going to talk about later.
Yep.
All right, so the 5-2 diet. And you can see here, this is days 1 through 7. And on these days, there will be 2 days where there's restricted calories. So it's not a true fast. You're not taking out food completely and all calories, but there's 2 days, and then the other days, one would eat normally. So on these days, women eat 500 calories and men eat 600 calories. So men get more calories than women.
It's just not fair. It's not fair.
A little bit harder. Okay. So same thing, it says up there, 5 days of the week. The other 2 days, I do not recommend 2 days back to back. There are some people that will do Saturday and Sunday because it's easy. They work Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday they restrict their calorie intake, and then that's 2 days back to back. So it's a little bit different. On those fast days, so again, it's not a true fast where you're taking out all calories, food. Again, women get 500, men get 600, and those can be broken up into meals. Now, 250 calories is not a lot for a meal, and so 2 meals of 250 calories. On the other days, again, eat normally. Hopefully, that person is eating healthily.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah. The studies, there are no studies. This is the one that the journalist wrote about her own personal experience. Now, I do have people that swear by this, and I am not going to convince anybody that something is right or wrong per se. Sometimes I just want to make sure people are safe. So that's why we're going to touch on them all. Okay, so spontaneous meal skipping, this is my excuse. So I did not get breakfast this morning. I was super busy. It was my spontaneous meal skip. You have to be careful about this because is it an excuse or is it for health? And this really just means that you skip a meal. It's not planned. It's not timed. So time-restricted eating, and it's not calorie-restricted eating like those 500, 600 calorie days. Okay. A lot of doctors really like this one. Again, I think they're using it as an excuse, but especially these days we're having a hard time getting the food in correctly. Okay, so alternate day fasting is sometimes easier for people to track. I mean, it's very consistent, right? So day 1 you eat normally. Day 2 you're going to have a 24-hour fast, or some people will vary and do that 500, 600 calories, and then eat normally, fast, eat normally, fast. Now, this is important. I know she's got to talk about this, so I'll let her talk.
Yeah. I really don't like this one. It's easy.
Tell us how you really feel.
I know. I'm going to be a little blunt here. There's certain ones that just set you up for failure, and this is one of them because you are basically starving yourself 3 to 4 days a week. Mm-hmm. And it's completely unnecessary.
Now, so not just opinion-based, there are quite a few things that we'll talk about later, which are things like your satiety hormones, which are really important, and downregulating those. Things like creating unhealthy eating habits, which is an issue that I want to make sure we curb, and we're doing this right with our patients.
Yes.
And that all of you do it right, which is why we're doing this talk. And then other issues being for weight loss specifically, which is why most people start intermittent fasting. This actually works against you. So short term, you'll lose weight. Long term, you will gain weight, which we'll talk about later.
Yep.
So eat, stop, eat. This is very similar in some ways to the 5-2, right? So you've got 2 days, except these are 24-hour fasts. So they're not restricted on these days to 500, 600 calories. They are literally 24-hour fast during that time. So full 24-hour fast, once or twice a week. Some people do this 1 day a week. I actually really love to do this 1 day a week for people. It's really good for them to give their digestive system some relaxation time. When we fast, it's good for our immune system, which I didn't focus on during this PowerPoint because the feedback was people did not want to talk about their immune system for 5 minutes, and all of the things that we were worried about and the challenges that we're facing right now. So I won't talk too much about that. But some do breakfast to breakfast, some do dinner to dinner. Again, it's a 24-hour period where they do this. And during that time, water, coffee, the same as the other diets. And then you eat normally during the eating periods. Now, my hope is that your normal is healthy, right? So we're going to talk about that again when we talk about how to do this right. And then some will ease in with a 16-8. It's a lot easier to just not eat after dinner and then break your fast at lunch the next day. A lot of us do that without even thinking. Maybe we slept in on the weekend and then we had a late brunch or lunch. So we've already done that. It's a good way to ease into that full day of fasting.
Yep.
Oh, the warrior diet.
Your turn.
So I promise this will not make you strong, and it will not help your performance. And that's where a lot of, I think, we buy titles sometimes, and so that's where this has come from. But what this specific type of intermittent fasting does is days 1 through, so this is every single day. They eat very small amounts of vegetables and fruits. Often they are raw. And then they break the fast right here in the evening. And during that time, they have a very large meal, which is a little counterintuitive for everything we're trying to accomplish.
Everything. It does not go with your hormone cycles. It does not go with anything. Yeah. You're stuffing yourself before bed, which impedes your digestion, so you're more likely to have heartburn and stomach issues and bloating. So it's really another one we really don't like. But it is a popular one out there, and it needs to be talked about.
And it's interesting, I have been this person, I will admit to this, that will buy something because of a brand sometimes, and I'm like, why did I do that, right? It's how we are as humans. So it's a great title. It's a great title. But again, small amounts of fruits and vegetables, one huge meal at night. with that fasting piece. So when you feast at night within that 4-hour eating window, there's quite a bit. And you'll see this a lot with the paleo diet. So it really has come out of that movement. And then there's a whole subset of it where people will eat all raw and things that we're not going to get into today.
Yep. Just because they're popular does not make them a good choice. Okay? That is very, very important, and we want to emphasize that these are all popular. That does not make them a good choice.
This reminds me of my daughter. She's 16. I love her to death. And so she recently decided to drink celery juice, which I actually love, and I have a post on it on my social media about the benefits of celery juice. But aside from that, she decided this was going to be absolutely fabulous because the Kardashians do it, evidently. I don't know. I can't tell you which Kardashian does it. I don't really care. But she did not like celery juice. So, again, just because it's popular, although I do like celery juice, she did not.
It has a very distinct flavor.
It's a distinct, for sure.
All right. So we've talked about the different types of intermittent fasting, and now we want to talk about the benefits. Why is this something you would even want to do? What benefit does it have to restrict your calories at all? Like, why would we even do this? And I think that that's something really important to talk about.
Now, I get this quite a bit too, where there's the opposite side of people who are like, well, that's just crazy. Why would I not eat?
Right.
And there are a lot of health benefits. So remember, as a society, we are wildly obese. We have huge amounts of cardiovascular disease,
Metabolic disorder, cholesterol, inflammation disorders, arthritis, hormones.
It's taken a long time for research to catch up with what we've been saying for a very long time, which is at the very bottom of everything is inflammation. And so that's super, super important. I wish we were as proactive about that as we are some other things.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll see here, I'm going to kind of bob in and out because I actually want to go through each of these. And again, I'm not going to go into them in a lot of depth.
There we go.
In a lot of depth because they're pretty intricate. And some of them we don't necessarily understand the mechanisms. Again, this is research that's emerging. But we do know that human growth hormone increases. So for those of you that know what human growth hormone is, in kids it helps them grow. In adults, it helps a lot of things. So our skin, there have been issues in the past with illegal growth hormone being used in gyms because it makes you strong. And there's a lot of anti-aging properties for it. And there's a lot that goes into human growth hormone. And there are lots of supplements that claim to support human growth hormone naturally. Some of them actually have the cofactors and do help mechanisms, and some of them don't. But this is one thing that actually does have an impact and does have the research with it.
So will it help my wrinkles?
Actually,
I don't have any, but I know somebody's thinking it. I mean, I'm only 35, so, you know.
Well, actually, a lot of the research is around anti-aging more recently, and so we'll talk about that. But that growth hormone component will help with wrinkles. And intermittent fasting does support growth hormone creation.
Awesome.
Insulin levels decrease. So when I'm talking to my patients who are having hypoglycemic episodes, that's the very beginning. So hypoglycemia means that your blood sugar is dipping, right? So that's when you're like a Snickers commercial, like, which I make. Sorry, honey, he's probably watching this, my husband, but I'm like, hey, you really need a Snickers. Get a little bit hangry there.
That's me. I'm the hangry one.
And that's the first step. If your blood sugar is dropping and dipping down low, that's hypoglycemia. If you are not metabolizing blood sugar, if your blood sugar is not regulated well, over time your pancreas is going to compensate and do secrete lots and lots of insulin. And so that's when we get insulin resistance, because the cells are like, no more insulin, please just put down the cupcakes. That's the simple version. That's what the cells, you didn't know what your cells were actually saying to you. That's what they're saying. And then insulin resistance over time. I'm, of course, talking about type 2 diabetes, not type 1. That's a whole other topic. we
So-
move into type 2 diabetes.
What you're saying is not just having chronically high, but that roller coaster can also set you up for
Yep.
type 2 diabetes.
Yep.
Got it. So if you are starving every hour, you probably have an insulin problem.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to think about, because everybody thinks of just keeping it high all the time. But when you're constantly having those dips, it actually can also lead to type 2 diabetes.
Those small meals every 1 to 2 hours were actually a really bad idea, it turns out. So sometimes these movements come in and we're like, hey, that's a good idea. It's going to stabilize your blood sugar. And then we're like, hey, actually what we did is cause insulin spikes all day long. That was not a good idea because your cells are like, please, no more. Intermittent fasting done correctly will actually help with your insulin levels and decrease them so that they're
In a
more,
healthy range.
more in a healthy range. And then because of that, and that blood sugar will be more regulated. So we want the cells to be receptive to insulin and blood sugar. We don't want them to be resistant. Now, inflammation, some studies have shown reductions in inflammatory markers. This is very exciting for me because, again, with chronic complex disease, I'm always looking at inflammatory levels. So my patients know, like, I think my last patient of the day, we went through 47 pages of labs, and that's not uncommon for me to go through 100 pages of labs with them, and they're like, and I'm like, I want to know everything about your inflammatory levels.
And that's how we get you feeling better. Is if we know what's going on, we can address it.
Yep. Cholesterol. So it may help with those bad LDLs and the triglycerides. And this is a beautiful thing because we can say, hey, this might have a positive impact on heart health, right? Because we're already addressing insulin, blood sugar, inflammation, and cholesterol. We're talking about cardiovascular risk. Let's see here, brain health. I'm a big fan of this one because it's a little bit hard sometimes with a family of 8 and owning a practice and all the craziness that's going on. And like, can't we all relate to this? Like, and I need as much brain power as I can possibly get.
Yeah.
So this is a good one. It actually increases a brain hormone called BDNF, and it may aid in the growth of new nerves. Sorry, I talk really quickly, so I'll try and slow down. As well as protects against Alzheimer's disease. So I'm not going to say, hey, this is going to completely protect you. We're just saying there are protective outcomes, so it could help. And then aging and longevity, I actually put this at the bottom very specifically because oftentimes people lead with, I want to lose weight and I want to look young, right? Like, yeah, we'll do.
That was my first question.
I'm there too. I'll be 40 at the end of this month, and I'm like, all right, this is happening. I'm turning 40. Intermittent fasting has been shown to extend the lifespan of rats. Now, keep in mind, a lot of our studies are rats, but I can tell you that I've been using intermittent fasting with patients for many years now. This is not a new thing, right? You've been using it for years.
Oh my gosh, years.
And now we're using it together with our patients, and it's absolutely amazing the differences you can see. Now, it's also absolutely amazing the differences you can see when you do a lot of things that are fairly basic, I'm going to be honest, just by things like cutting out inflammatory foods and alcohol, or eating vegetables. Huge for your skin and your health and your wrinkles and all of that, but this can give you a little bit of an edge. All right, so this is, which one is intermittent fasting? I would love to see some people actually respond, so we'll listen to you.
We see you watching.
We see
there are
you.
eyes there.
These are both me, by the way. So this one, it's flipped. So how many people say this one is intermittent fasting?
Anybody? It's crickets. All right.
Or this one. So this is a really good example. This is me at 22. I think I had just started medical school. There's a stethoscope around my neck. So I had started medical school at this point in time. Didn't necessarily realize I was doing intermittent fasting, but what I was doing was pretty much a 16/8. So I didn't eat after dinner. I didn't snack in the evenings. I didn't break my fast until lunch the next day because I was never hungry in the morning. I had my cup of coffee. Now, here's what's super important about this is eating right for the right person makes a big difference. So long periods of fasting for me are not a good thing. And when it came down to calories consumed and the type, it turns out, which I didn't realize until much later, that I cannot eat fruit. I'm actually fructose intolerant, which I talk about a lot with patients because things that are healthy in general may not be healthy for you. So I ate lots of fruit, and I also thought I was eating a lot and a lot of good stuff, but it turned out that I didn't have enough calories to maintain my metabolism. And so over time, your metabolism will actually slow down if you're not eating enough calories. And if you're taking this to an extreme, where I didn't think I was, and then I was learning about it in medical school, and then, I was like, oh, this is great, I'm doing such a great job. Now, this is me, and you would think I was like really, really working out. I'm going to be honest, I was not working out. This is me just a couple of years ago. I think I was 30, maybe 4 years ago, 36 at the time, and granted, I will be honest, I had just done the 22 push-up challenge to raise awareness about veteran suicide. So my arms were a little extra buff right here. But that being said, I eat. And so that's super important. I also do kind of switch around with the intermittent fasting. But what I eat has drastically changed. Yeah. Even though what I ate at 22, I wasn't like another 22-year-old. I thought I was eating really, really healthy. It wasn't healthy for me.
All right, so we've talked a lot about doing it wrong. So what are the consequences of doing it wrong? And we see patterns of the same things over and over and over again. And the biggest one is gaining weight. It is the opposite of what you want to have happen, right? So short-term fasting does boost your metabolism. But if you go big or go home ongoing, you're actually going to suppress your metabolism and you're going to start gaining weight. This happens a lot faster in women than it does in men. Again, not fair. You and your husband are doing the exact same plan. He keeps losing weight and then you start gaining after 3 months. It's not fair, but it's because you're doing it wrong. You're taking it to the extreme. Okay? Do not fast as a family. Children should not be fasting. Okay, this is very important. Even religions don't have, some religions don't have the children participating because it's not healthy for them. Okay, and then with females, you're going to get hormone dysregulation. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I just want to go back to kids should not fast because this includes teenagers. I know sometimes we're like, hey, they're, in the medical world, when we're looking at dosing kids, we dose things by weight. Herbs, we dose medications by weight. And we say, hey, they're over 100 pounds, they're an adult weight. That doesn't make them an adult, right? And so this is super important because their metabolisms are different. Everything is different with them. And so I've seen this before with teenagers where they're like, I want to start intermittent fasting because this person in Hollywood is doing it, or my friend is doing it, or my whatever. And I've also been in this boat where I had done lots of fad diets when I was in my teens. So yeah. I did everything wrong before I learned to do things right because I like to do things the hard way.
I even did the diet pills.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I know.
I did a lot of cabbage soup diet, I'm going to be honest, when I was in my teens. But the point being, they're not candidates for it. And so a lot of people will say, well, of course I'm not going to fast my kids. And they don't necessarily think of their teenagers as kids. So that's important. Now, female hormone dysregulation. This is similar to, my athletes that work out quite a bit. At a certain point, our bodies will say there are not enough calories for us to reproduce. And so they're going to shut that down. Now, for women, our hormones are very sensitive. So our hypothalamic pituitary axis, which is how our brain communicates to a bunch of other organs like our thyroid and our ovaries and even our intestines and other ones, our adrenals, this is very, very sensitive. And so we can really mess things up. The other thing I've seen is that this is similar with women who restrict food in other ways like eating disorders, which we're going to touch on later. is that the intestines will slow down. And so we want to make sure that their intestines don't slow down. And if you're doing too much fasting, that can happen. But just from the female dysregulation piece, skipped periods, it can be a little bit harder to get those regulated over time. And I've also had at least one patient that just kind of blamed it on their birth control pill. And they're like, oh, it's just my birth control pill because it's regulating my hormones, which we have a talk coming up on hormones, by the way.
Yes, we do.
And one specifically for men because they're neglected.
Yes, they are.
But birth control pills don't regulate your hormones. That's not how that works. So fatigue, because you don't have enough calories.
Right.
You can't keep going.
You can't keep going. You get tired. You can't think straight by midday. I mean, you are like losing your cool on your family over nothing because you're just spent. You're running on fumes. Like, imagine trying to keep a car going with like a half a tank of gas, and then you just tip it up with a half a tank of gas constantly. I mean, think about what that does to an engine. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know about cars. I'm around a lot of car people, so that kind of comes into my brain. So yeah, if you're running on fumes, I mean, you're not going to be able to function optimally, which a lot of people do it for weight loss, but a lot of people do it because they want to function optimally. They want their body to be at its peak and doing well. And if you do it wrong, you're doing the exact opposite of what you're trying to accomplish, and then you start getting frustrated, and that's the last thing you want to have happen.
This is where I ask people to honor their bodies. So I have worked with practices, and I've worked with physicians that really took this to quite an extreme, and they've said, well, just push through it because then you won't be fatigued in the long run, or push through it because those hypoglycemia episodes are going to go away. And there are ways to be safe and dangerous. So I ask people, like, you know your body, ask your physician, ask us, but just honor your body. Now, that being said, if you're hypoglycemic, Snickers is pretty much the worst way to break that fast, which we're going to talk about here soon.
So don't believe commercials. If anything else, don't believe commercials.
Like, great marketing does not actually pan out in the real world. And then I've seen triggering of eating disorders. So this is important because someone may not have an eating disorder previous to doing intermittent fasting, but what does happen naturally is that when you restrict your calories over time, it will change the signal to your brain, your satiety signals. So it will change your ghrelin and your leptin, and then you will not be as hungry, right? So I think most of us have gone through at least one episode of this where I'm like, I missed breakfast and I was starving. Yeah. And then it got to lunchtime and I was like, I'm not even hungry anymore, right?
Been there, done that. Yep.
We are built for survival. So we're actually built for long terms of fasting because we didn't always have food. There were famines that we had to survive through. Now, what I have seen happen is I've seen this more in women where they're like, hey, I'm not hungry. That's great. I'm going to listen to my body. Right? So your body is not always telling you what you need to hear. Sometimes it's just telling you what you need to survive, or it's responding to your survival, like what you're doing. Yeah. That's how things like cortisol work. And then they think, hey, I lost weight. I look really fabulous.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep this going. Why eat? Why eat? And so again, we're going to reemphasize that be careful, be really thoughtful about any of your intermittent fasting.
Yes.
Make sure you're eating. Make sure you're eating good quality nutrients, and that long-term, remember, calorie restriction not done well will slow down the metabolism.
Yeah,
just like that picture of me.
Yep. So one story comes to mind, and it's one that I probably see once a year, but it's like every single year for the past 8 years has come up, and that is people will do a 16-8 6 days a week, and then a 24, 1 day a week. And they lose like 30 pounds, and they're feeling great, and they're like 3 months in. And then they come to me, and they're like, I have had the strangest episodes, like once a week, where they literally black out, and they wake up shoving a chocolate bar down their face in a closet. Literally in a closet. And the first time I was like, huh. That's interesting. You probably need more calories. And now 8 years in, I'm like, okay, we got to talk. Because what you're doing is you're literally starving your body for an unnaturally long period of time, and your body has to function. And if your conscious mind is so stubborn that it ignores your body, your primal self will take over, and it will get you the sustenance you need. And then it starts the cycle of guilt and shame. And then you start trying harder. And it is an eating disorder. It's one that most people, once they realize what they're doing, it's easily fixed. It doesn't require an inpatient facility. But like, they're literally, and it just breaks my heart because I see this so often, and it's so frustrating. And then I do hear some hormone doctors, which I'm like, if you know anything about hormones, why would you suggest this? Saying, hey, do a 16-8, 7 days a week. And then 3 months in, I get the typical, like, somebody tells me that they're going to do it, and I'm like, well, here's something to think about, and then 3 months in, they're like, I literally found myself in the closet eating chocolate. I didn't even know it was in my house. Mm-hmm. So it's like they almost blacked out enough to go to the store. They didn't even eat it in their car for some reason. They come home and they literally find themselves in a closet. And I see it over and over and over again. And so it's enough of a phenomenon that I'm like, okay, this is a thing. Mm-hmm. And for some reason we go to the closet because it's a hiding spot, right? Like kids play hide and seek, and that's like the best spot. Mm-hmm. And, so you can, your body will take over, and we see it over and over and over again. Another story I heard recently was someone going keto. And her way of going keto was to eat nothing but dairy and bacon for 6 hours a day. Okay. So, and even with that, she was only getting about 800 calories a day. And she's like, I gained 20 pounds and I don't understand. So there's a lot of people doing it wrong, and it's a lot of the same story, which is why when someone asked us for it, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, can I please talk about this for an hour? Because people are truly hurting themselves doing this, thinking that they're doing something good when they're not, and they just take it to the extreme because it is an easy dieting tool, I guess. Out of all of them, it could be considered easy, versus like, I don't know, eating vegetables. That seems a little harder for people. So there is a way to do it wrong, and if you do it wrong for too long, you're gonna crash. So if you find this happening, know that you're not alone, and you can fix it. And we're gonna tell you how. Mm-hmm.
The one thing I would add to this, I have so many stories. I'm like sifting through them, but the thing that I would add is more often that I would like to see people come in to me after they've tried things that work for other people. So I had a patient that did the Whole30, and we spent probably a good 4 months because it wasn't the right diet for him. It actually just completely trashed his gut. And this, for most people, is a good reset diet and an anti-inflammatory diet. And so there were a lot of layers of it, but we spent 4 months getting him to be able to eat again. So, be careful with what you decide to do, because not all the foods are right for you. And then
also leading into them correctly.
Leading
another
into
one.
them correctly, which we're going to talk about.
We're going to talk about that. Yeah.
But again, I just want to reemphasize, like, listen to your body in this aspect. Like, honor your body, because sometimes you're just not ready for, let's say a 24-hour fast.
Or even a 16-8.
Yeah.
You might not be ready yet.
And definitely not 7 in a row.
Yeah, definitely not. All right, so one important thing to address is who is not a good candidate for intermittent fasting. I think that's really important. A lot of people don't know, like, is it right for me? Is it not? I have these health issues. This is pretty much it. Obviously, it's best to talk with your doctor, and a doctor who's knowledgeable about intermittent fasting and does not suggest something astronomical. But if you are underweight, even if you are inflamed, or maybe even your cholesterol is high, which is inflammation, or maybe your blood sugar is out of control, if you're underweight, this is not a good choice for you. It's not. So scrap it. You can still keep watching and learn how to do it right, but it is not a good choice for you.
And it may be a good choice later. So that's another piece is, when I have patients in the office, I usually say, like, step 1, step 2, step 3, mm-hmm. and where I start with someone in one step versus someone else in another step drastically changes. And sometimes I'll say, I would love to detox you, or I would love for you to do intermittent fasting later. because right now you're just not a candidate for this. But underweight is a very big one, and a history of an eating disorder is the two big ones right off the top, where I'm like, hey, I know you're going to lose weight. That's the reality of it. It's similar with my some of my autoimmune diet patients or my SIBO diet patients, where I'm worried they're not candidates for certain therapies because they can't lose any more weight.
Okay, so we have a question. What are negative impacts of intermittent fasting on your health in long term? Do you not recommend intermittent fasting for people who have gallstones? And if we were to exercise during the feeding window, how much time before the exercise should or shouldn't we eat?
Okay.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. I think we covered a lot of the negative impacts of the intermittent fasting on health, because I've gone over this, and we've actually talked about this a lot in our previous talks, where every single cell in your body is made of what you eat. Like somehow we separate ourselves from this piece. Like literally think about everything you put into your mouth today, how much of that was real food. And let's say you need to make thyroid hormone. Every biochemical pathway in your body, every hormone you make is built off of what you put in your mouth. So in order to make thyroid hormone, because I have a lot of hypothyroid patients, you add an iodine molecule onto a tyrosine, and tyrosine's a protein, right? We get iodine from our diet. We need magnesium and manganese and selenium and zinc, so we need those things. And so long term, when people are not doing it correctly, I worry about their nutrient status. Are they getting enough nutrients in? Are they going to slow down their metabolism? Are they being too extreme with it? And is it going to trigger some other, like an eating disorder or something like that? Because I've had so many patients through the years who have become like almost orthorexic. They can only eat this, they can't eat this, they don't do this, they don't know how to do that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you need to eat. You need food to survive. And so we just don't eat as much food, and we don't need junk food. It turns out that cupcakes are great to enjoy, and I am not dissing on a good cupcake, but that doesn't mean, like keeping that piece in mind.
So exercise. So in general, I don't recommend eating during a fasting day because the calories are restricted.
You mean exercising during a fasting day?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just during a fasting day, not in general. I'm a big fan of physical activity, but not doing anything hardcore. Going for a walk, gardening, a lightweight yoga session, I think is great. But in general, I mean, if you're only doing it a couple days a week or one day a week, it's a good idea to let your body do what it needs to do, which is heal. And exercise requires a lot of energy, and it actually breaks you down to build you back up.
Think of elite athletes and think of what they do. So they push themselves and they push themselves and they push themselves. They break it down, they build it back up. They break it down, they build it back up. And we know very clearly that elite athletes with good diets perform better. I mean, that's it. And I've worked with athletes over the years, and it's like night and day. There was a really good movie about this that I talk about quite a bit. And so keep that in mind. Like if you are detoxing or you're on a fast day, then minimize your output during that time. That's not the point of what you're doing right there.
Right. Again, this is not a diet tool. This is a health tool, which I think is really important to keep in mind. It's really a great question. Yeah, definitely.
Let's see.
All right, so...
And then gallstones are a little bit... I wanted to address that real quick.
I forgot about that question.
I did too. That it's a little bit complicated depending on how many gallstones you have. I do recommend intermittent fasting with gallstones. And there's a lot of other things I also recommend, and I treat them quite naturally, and it gets depending on the size and sludge and how your gallbladder is working. There's a lot that can be done for gallstones.
Yeah. Also, just gallbladder function in general is very diet foundation. So if you are concerned about that, like if somebody in your life has had them, things like that, the foundational health stuff that we're going to go over is going to help in general. So yeah, that's a complicated one to address. All right, so how do you intermittent fast correctly? And these are the ones, again, we want to share scientifically backed things and stuff that we've done it all. We've tried them all ourselves. I remember when I first learned about the bulletproof diet and how you start your day with a fat in your coffee versus breakfast. And I didn't realize that was intermittent fasting. But it was, and I was doing it every day, and I lost weight for like 3 weeks, and it was awesome. But then I started finding myself binging at night, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And it turned out I calculated my calories, and I was only getting, even with 200 calories in my coffee, I was only getting about 900 calories a day, which is not enough to sustain on. What I ended up doing was switching to a 12-12 and then doing a 16-8 twice a week. And that worked really well for me. I love food and I'm a mom. And so a 24-hour fast is not a great option for me. I don't do well. What I do know is that jumping to a 24 is not necessarily the best idea for people. So if you're just new to intermittent fasting, a 12-12 is a great place to start. And you can do that daily because, it's a 12-hour window. You're getting 3 or 4 meals in there. But most people, if you think about it, a lot of people start with like a sugary coffee and maybe a bagel. And then they're going out and then they're sitting in front of their TV at 9:30 at night with a bowl of ice cream or a bowl of popcorn, or they're munching on a chocolate bar. The kids are in bed and they're unwinding, they're having their glass of wine. So literally they're eating and taking in calories for 16 hours a day. And so shortening that is a great place to start. Mm-hmm. Do you want to expand on anything?
I also find that it's just more achievable. I like the 12-12, and I actually like the 16-8.
I do too.
And again, I really like to have people start. I'm all about the end goal. So for people to do things in a healthy way, and baby steps to the market is something I tell my patients a lot, because I could throw the whole thing at them and
throw the baby out with the bathwater.
But baby steps to the market, because everything is going to help just a little bit. So wherever you're ready to start there.
So an option is a 12-12, or 2 days a week you do a 16-8 or an 18-6, or a 1 day a week 24. These are extremely beneficial for all those things that we talked about. You do not have to go big or go home. 1 day a week or 2 days a week are going to completely make over your health when done in conjunction with what we're going to talk about next, which is setting you up for success. That is our goal with this workshop, and in our practice is we want you to be set up for long-term health. We want to work ourselves out of a job where you come in and you get your, you get your yearly wellness check, or you're sick and you want your IV or your immune injection in the winter, but you have what you need to be able to be healthy. And intermittent fasting is a great tool, but it does require a little extra than just cutting calories like we talked about in the beginning. So absolutely foundational is a must, and this is my favorite topic, is to eat well overall. So 7 days a week, you are eating clean, minimally processed, produce-based meals. You want to have lots of fruits and vegetables, cooked raw, all of them with lots of healthy fats. You want to have clean, minimally processed proteins. You want to make sure you're staying hydrated, lots of herbs and spices. You want to be eating well all the time, because this is what sets you up. You're to relieve inflammation, to clean up the bad cholesterol, to detox your body. You have to have all your nutrients. That it's just a must. Like, you are what you eat and what you are able to absorb. Now, that being said, if you decide, hey, I do want to give this a try, there's going to be a lot of stuff happening, and you want to make sure that your body is going to be able to function properly. And we talk about this for an hour and I think 20 minutes in our detox workshop, which is on Dr. Mary Kay Geyer's, this lady's right here, her YouTube channel. So if you just go to YouTube and type in Dr. Dr. Mary Kay, Maryk, Geyer, Geyer, the channel comes up and you can watch that workshop, and we highly recommend that you watch it and do that first before diving into intermittent fasting. It's really important.
This is super important because you will lose weight. I mean, people lose weight when they start to intermittent fast, or they do time-restricted eating, something of that nature. And when you lose weight, your fat cells actually release what's in the fat cell, which includes toxins. And so you're going to need to get those toxins out. Now, one of the things that I worry about with detoxes out there is, we talked about this back at the detox talk, with the phases of detox. And are you actually just putting a bunch of toxic substances in your bloodstream, then your body will package them up to get rid of them, and then it has to get rid of them through sweat, through urine, through stool, and through breath. And so that's the next phase of detox. And so when we speed up the first one and we don't speed up the other ones, we can actually just make ourselves really sick.
Really sick. You'll feel like you have the flu.
So intermittent fasting, people will get the detox flu from it. And this could be, any of the detoxes. We actually talked about all the juicing fasts and all of that in our detox talk. So we highly recommend somebody lead in with a good detox.
Yeah, not just any. Don't buy a 3-day juicing cleanse, please. And again, we talk about this in depth in the detox workshop. Learn how to detox correctly, then do it, and then start leading into intermittent fasting. It's really, really important that you are able to package them up and get them out in a timely manner. And like we said, if you take intermittent fasting too far, you're going to become, I'm just going to be blunt, you're going to become constipated and bloated. It's not going to come out. It's going to get reabsorbed. And you're just starting the process all over again, and you're keeping yourself inflamed, which is not the goal. You don't want that. You're not feeling good.
Yep.
So you need to make sure you're able to eliminate toxins and everything that as they come, and even the cell waste. I mean, if your body is healing up, there's going to be a lot of just metabolic waste, and that stuff has to get taken out too. It's the same thing. So you want to make sure that everything is functioning optimally, so that again you can heal your body and experience really good health, better than you've ever felt, or at least maybe since childhood. All right. Oops. There we go. So a lot of people like to, again, especially if they're treating it as a diet tool. I always remember like people leading into No Sugar January, and they like, let me just clean out all the stuff from Halloween to New Year's, and I'm just going to eat it all, and then I'm going to start it on January 3rd, because I need a couple days to get it all out, right? Because you don't want to puke. But this is not the time to do that. You're set again. We talked about insulin resistance and the blood sugar roller coaster. And if you are binging on sugar the day before, the day after, all that work is for naught. It's not gonna work. So again, that comes with the eating well overall. That doesn't mean that you can't have dessert. If you are one of those people that has to have it for your mental well-being, make the healthiest version possible. There's lots of delicious desserts out there that won't do a blood sugar spike. And if you need ideas, my website, Road to Living Whole, has a lot of them.
Marianne gives away so much for free. I just am constantly amazed by it. Like, I'm always sending people to her website, and I'm like, here, go check this out. She's got this gluten-free, this dairy-free, this, like sugar-free, this healthy version of your favorite cookie. So definitely check out her website, because she just gives it.
It's all there for you guys, and it's because I want to be a resource. And food, like, I love food. I love eating. And I do understand, like, I love a good cheesecake. I can't eat it anymore, but I love it. But you don't want to do it the day before, the day after a fast. Okay? Keep it to a minimum. Eat well overall. Don't use a fast as an excuse to reward yourself. Reward yourself with smaller jeans, okay?
It's not like that. I've seen that a lot where people have used the fast, and then they're like, I'm breaking the fast. I'm like, with a cheeseburger? What's happening here? Like, what?
Yeah, it's not a diet.
Or like a detox to retox. So I'm like, that was a terrible. Not only are you undoing what you've accomplished, but you may actually be worse than you were before.
Yeah.
Because your body is like, hey, I feel better. Oh.
Yeah, negative. That negative reinforcement. All right, so this is really important. How do you break your fast? I do not want you running to Starbucks and getting that venti coffee you've been dreaming of, right? Or because you're like feeling like you're starving yourself, right? You need to break your fast in a very healthy way that's not going to spike your blood sugar. So we need a fat, a fiber, and a protein, right? So a lot of people ask me, well, like, what does it even look like? Right? Like, where do I get my fiber from if I'm not having fruit or oatmeal?
If I'm not eating bread,
if I'm not eating,
fiber.
Whole wheat gives you fiber. Like, where am I going to get it from? Whole grains, right? So this is a picture of like my favorite breakfast of all time. And it is onions and shredded Brussels sprouts cooked in bacon with some eggs. And there's some herbs and stuff in there. But you want to have vegetables. You want to have a healthy fat. And you want to have a protein. So eggs are a great source. A lot of people, if they eat straight up eggs, feel kind of nauseous, so you do want to have normally people want to have something with them, and so vegetables are a great option, and having them sauteed makes them easier to digest. And this is going to keep you from feeling sustained, and so that you're not so hungry. If you start with a sugary coffee and a bagel, an hour later you're going to have your crash, you're going to get hungry again. So you want to break it well. And if you need ideas on what this looks like, I do have a guide of my breakfast guide, so you can get that as well for free. It gives you some places to start. So we talked about this. Coffee, I mean, it's not going to keep you hydrated, but it's a 0-calorie option, right? But you really want to stay hydrated. If you are dehydrated, you're going to feel hungrier, you're going to feel fatigued, and it's going to be more difficult to sustain it. And being at home more, I'm finding how little water I drink when I'm home versus at the office. So you really want to make sure you're staying hydrated. Get a cup with a straw. I find it the easiest to drink from a straw, personally. Some people can just take a bottle and chug it. I was never good at that. I never did good at the college parties. Anyways, okay. So water, obviously, and if you don't like water, you can enhance it with like lemon, cucumber, mint, things like that. You can do an herbal tea, unsweet tea, but stay away from what's it called? Diet Coke, but what's the stuff that people add flavor to their water? Crystal Light.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the 0-calorie, flavor water things. I can't think of the word. It's too late in the day. But those have food colorings, those have gross, artificial sweeteners, which have a whole host of other health problems. They actually make you hungrier. So it's just best to stay away from them. I mean, I don't understand people who don't like water, but I know you guys are out there. So, drink as much water as you can, at least half your body weight in ounces. If you can. I like to add a little bit of sea salt to keep my electrolytes balanced, and it enhances the flavor. So if you don't like water, that could be one reason why, is it doesn't have electrolytes, and your body's like, ugh, what is this?
Yep. Yeah, there are a lot of options, and another one I really like. So I'm coming from a perspective where in my previous life before medical school, I would drink a 2-liter bottle of soda every day. And that was me. That was just me growing up. I drank my 2-liter bottle of Coke, only Coke, every day by myself. And so when I moved to diet soda, I thought I was doing better, right? And so that's why I really wanted to point out the 0 calories. No, Coke Zero is not an option. That's not what we're talking about here. You're doing the exact opposite, because your body still tastes the sweetener, still spikes insulin, and we now know that it's not good for your blood sugar. It turns out that a bunch of very important organizations that lead diabetes and recommendations were not correct when they told everybody to eat sugar-free and drink sugar-free, that was one of the worst things that they could have done.
Worst things ever. And I don't think they've really backtracked on that.
Not so much. But But, you know, sparkling water is a really good option. And then doing some kind of, like she said, like fruits, melons, where there is a little bit of that sweet. There are the calories, but it definitely helps. Lemons are great. Limes are great.
I'd rather you drink water and have a little bit of fruit in it versus not drink it at all and totally, like, skip over it. And if you have, like, a caffeine thing and Coke is your way to get it, it's time to break that or switch to coffee. And speaking of, so let's say you are doing, I'm not eating until noon, okay? But at 10:30, you get kind of hungry. Like, there's a little bit of a rumble in there. You can do bulletproof coffee. You can do straight coffee. Just don't do sweetened coffee. Even with sweet and low, like we said, doesn't count, okay? You can also drink tea. Caffeine is an appetite suppressant, so it can help draw you out.
So one of the things we were talking about before this was how caffeine works as an appetite suppressant, especially coffee, right? And little known fact is I used to work in the weight loss industry, surprisingly. I'm joking. But you know, a lot of weight loss drugs are used in weight loss facilities, like amphetamine and phenylmetrazine, and those appetite suppressants. And then they all have a natural one, and their natural appetite suppressant always has caffeine. That's what it is. It's a caffeine pill with a few other things in it, perhaps to help drive it into the cell or utilize it a little bit better. But that's what it is. It's caffeine.
Yeah. This is being interpreted, and all I see is a, like, faceless shape, and I don't see the interpreter, so I was letting her know. If you were really wondering, like, what is she doing with her hands? All right. So, to reiterate, you need to eat well every single day. And if that is not something that you're used to doing right now and you don't know if that's what that looks like or if you're even doing it right, you can schedule a consult. You can schedule a session. We can get you a meal plan to get you started and recipes and kind of get you in the habit of eating healthy first before you start intermittent fasting. We talked about steps. Foundation is you got to get your food.
Yep.
Like, you got to get your food, you got to get your nutrients. And then from there you can build. And then make sure that once you've got the eating down, make sure you do a high quality, safe detox before you get started to make sure that you are able to eliminate the toxins, because our fat tissue, our fat cells are where the toxins go so that they don't destroy the cells of our body and kill us, basically. So they get sent there, and that's from car exhaust and plastics and cleaning chemicals and air fresheners and laundry detergent. Like, all this stuff has harmful, toxic chemicals. And if you're around it a lot, part of the reason why you don't lose weight is because it is stored in your cells, and your body's like, no, this is going to hurt you, so you don't lose weight. But if you force it through something like intermittent fasting, it's going to release it, and it's going to overwhelm your body. You're going to feel sick, and then it's going to get reabsorbed. So watch your sugar. Save it for like a couple days before you're going to be doing your fast. All right. And if you can, make it the healthiest version possible. If not, enjoy that piece of cheesecake for me and then move on. You're not ruining your diet or anything like that. So let's just get over that. When you break your fast, break it with a fat, fiber, and a protein. Stay hydrated. And if you get hungry, have some coffee straight up.
So there are resources and studies in here. I tried to give a good like smattering of them, because some people are going to want to delve in. They're going to be like, but what do the studies show? And those, you guys are my people. I'm like, oh, let's nerd out together. But for those of you that just want to understand a little bit more of, like, how do I start this? What do I do? What's some good information? What are some guides? I really like Healthline. They've done a really fantastic job with their information with intermittent fasting. Harvard also has a page specifically on intermittent fasting, and he does a fantastic job of going through it. He also goes into the mechanisms a little bit more, and doesn't make it too
sciencey,
too cerebral, where you're like, what's happening? I lost you. And then here are some really good studies. This is one of my favorite effects of intermittent fasting on health, aging, and disease. New England Journal of Medicine, and this just came out in December of 2019. So we have really good information. It is not like, you know, a fad thing. It's not a like voodoo, whatever.
It's not like a out there, like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's not like smudging or something that people are like, what is this? Like,
which there's also science.
I know,
behind
there's
people,
science behind it too. I know, but people,
still,
yeah. It's one of those things that, I mean, it's pretty popular, so I don't feel like it's one of those woo-woo things that people like, but you do want to make sure, again, that you do it correctly. And if you're going to do it and you like to nerd out like we do, we got you covered. And again, I'm going to be sending out the PowerPoint with the replay tomorrow. So if you came in late, you can still watch it. It's also going to go up on our YouTube channel in the next probably week. We got a full load the rest of this week. So, and then we have families and kids are home. So, you know, give us a chance to get it up on YouTube.
And if anybody wants to volunteer to homeschool my kids, I don't know how that's going to happen, but
hey, we're open. You know, there's some bartering that can happen. We're so glad that you guys joined us, and again, we're going to have the PowerPoint for you, so just stay tuned. We appreciated you guys asking questions and watching, if you want more information or you would like to schedule an appointment or a consult, go to drmarykgeyer.com. You can give us a call. And again, our information is also on the bottom of the PowerPoint. Yep. So, you know, we're here for you. We want to support you. We want you guys to be as healthy as you can be for the rest of your life in a sustainable and realistic way, where you're not miserable. That's really important to us.
We really don't want to see you hurt yourself and then come see us then.
No,
so
it's a lot harder then.
Be really proactive. And again, all that detox, we just gave that talk in January. It's on YouTube. We went through all of the detoxes. We went through the wraps. We talked about foot baths. We went through all of that. So that's actually all there. We try and give you guys a wealth of information, and we always try and bust all the myths as much as possible. So check that out as well. So thank you so much. Let us know if there's other things that you want to hear about. We have our next couple of months planned out already. But we're
what is our next one?
Autoimmune disease.
Autoimmune disease is next month, and then men's hormones are coming in June for Men's Health Month. Men are neglected, and we want to make sure you guys are set up for success too and feeling good. You deserve it. And you never go to the doctor, so we'll just tell you how to do it, so that, you know, if you decide you want to, you'll know what tests to ask for, and if not, you'll at least know where to get started.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.